Today, we have an interview episode with my friend who is not a stranger to this show, Lauren Francois, and we are talking about her journey this year in becoming a stay-at-home mom. She ditched so much at the end of 2023, and she has been really living in alignment with her priorities, leaning into what feels best for her and her family. And she's coming on the podcast to talk to you guys today. And funny story, Friday, I sat down to record a podcast that has been in my notes app for forever. And it's a message of not being made for more, but being made for right now. And I'm going to put that rant onto my Patreon, patreon.com/living in sync, because while I really stand by what I talked about, I really stand by what I said on that episode. For whatever reason, I was just like, nope, like this is just not landing. I don't want to put it out here on the big Living in Sync podcast. And then I didn't know what Lauren was going to bring to this conversation. So as we were pre-bantering before I hit record, she talked about this, that, it's totally okay to be content and happy and not always pushing and pressing for more out of life. And I just laughed because I was like, Lauren, I recorded a solo on this and it just didn't feel right to talk about it on my own. And I say more in the rant, so I won't go into it here, but I wanted to just really highlight and share my friend who took some big, bold moves for herself and her family, and she now wants to advocate and encourage you to do the same with whatever feels in alignment and right for you. So without further ado, let's roll into the episode with Lauren Francois. Welcome to Living in Sync. This is a wellness and lifestyle podcast for ladies in their 30s. We've got a lot going on, and on this show, we're going to talk about it all. I'm your host, Joelle. If you're into health, wellness, fitness, beauty, fashion, business, career, time management hacks, organization, girl chats, goal setting, mom things, and everything in between, I hope this show supports you in whatever you need today. Let's dig into today's episode. Oh, my friend, I am so excited today because I am bringing on and have brought on in the past, but she's back on the podcast again, my friend, Lauren Francois, and we are going to be having such a great conversation. I can't wait for you to hear everything that we're going to talk about. So Lauren, hey, welcome back to the Living in Sync podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I'm really excited, as I've said 1,000 times already, that this conversation is so prominent in and so needed. And you guys are going to totally get it when Lauren talks about all the changes, transitions, and things she did that are, I would say, unquote, quote unquote, conventional, but also unconventional. And I've known Lauren a really long time, and I've really always seen her take action in alignment with what feels right and feels best for her. And I think that as women, a lot of times we're making decisions from what are other people going to think? What I said I was going to do this, but now I'm feeling like I want to do that. And I want to have Lauren on here today to talk about navigating the changes, the transitions, and some hindsight and insight that we can get from her, because things really, really changed. And there was a lot of things that she, I'm sure, worked through internally. And Lauren is exactly the person that's able to coach herself through that. But I know not everybody is. So Lauren, start off with like where you're at in life right now. And you can kind of intertwine your story. I'll link in the show notes previous episodes. I think that would even be fun to go back and you guys can listen to those as well to hear more about Lauren's story if you want to. But start off with, what are you up to right now, my friend, and give the audience a little bit about you.
So right now I am a stay-at-home mom. And I never in a million years thought that that is what I would be, that I would ever want to be that. My kids are actually 7 and almost 6. So they are in school full time. And it's so funny because when my kids were younger, I worked. I actually have worked my entire life up until the beginning of this year. I had a conversation with my husband in Q4 of last year, and we mutually decided that I was going to be done working. And so all of 2024, I have been mom, and I call myself mom. I call myself the CEO of our house. I basically run our life. My husband makes the money, he runs multiple businesses. That is like his focus. He is also like a very present parent when he's home, but I am the primary parent and I run pretty much everything else. And so I went from working, I was an entrepreneur for 9 years to making this transition. And so when Joelle said on her podcast episode the other week, if you ever want to come on the podcast, I immediately texted her and I was like, can I come on? I really just want to talk about the changes that I have made within my life over the last 9, 10 months. And I want to offer the opposite perspective because I know, especially on this podcast, you're hearing from a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was that. I think you should go back and listen to my previous podcast episodes because I think this is the third time I've been on your podcast.
At
And
least, at
yeah,
least the
and
third.
just listen to kind of the different phases because I think I was in a different phase in every episode. And so you can see how things change. So you can see how things have evolved over time, over the last, I don't know, I don't even know when that first episode was. It was probably at least 3 years ago. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
my business changed each time that I was on the podcast, and now we're here. So one of the main things I think that I want to communicate to all the women who are listening right now is that it's okay to change your mind. And Joelle and I were talking about this before, but it's okay to do something that you said you would never do. It's okay to it's okay to do something that you never thought you would do. I I thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom when my kids were younger. And then I realized that like my personality, I just when they were that age, I could not I could not be with them 24/7. Like I just was not the best version of myself if I was trying to manage them and all their big emotions. And my kids are only a year and a half apart. So, we were 2 under 2. We were in all of that for a long time. And so actually when they were that young, I never thought about not working. Like my work was my escape. My work was my me time. It was like the thing that I did for myself. And I always thought when my kids were like in school full time, which last year was the first year they both were in school full time, I always thought, oh, I would work even more. Once they were in school, I would do more work. And it actually ended up being the exact opposite. Like once they got into school full time and I started navigating that, and they started to get into more activities, and my husband's businesses kind of evolved, I realized that I felt like they actually needed me more now. They needed more emotional support. They needed more mental support. You think that they need you less as they get older, and they actually in a lot of ways need you more. And so, I said we could kind of go into relationship, like the relationship side of this, but my husband's work is super, super, super stressful. And so I felt like it was really, really important for one of the children's parents to not be stressed. And I was like, he's very stressed. And he comes home some nights and you can tell it's just been like such an awful day. And I'm like, I really feel like our kids need that balance of a parent that doesn't have that stress. And I was in a position where I could be that parent. And then once when they were in school full time, it was like I didn't need that time away from them because they were already gone all day. So where I was using work to be that me time, I didn't really need that anymore because I was getting that me time because they were at school. And so those were kind of the things that were going on in my head when we were starting to make this transition, thinking about our relationship, thinking about the kind of mom that I wanted to be, thinking about what my top priorities are. And we can go into all of those things. But yeah, I think it's the main point I wanted to start with is it's okay to change your mind. Things can be a phase. Like a bit your business can be a phase. And I know Joelle talks about this a lot because she's had phases in her business too, network marketing, which I was in as well. And then there was a phase of the feminine fitness, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
cycle syncing and all of that. And then now there's this phase of podcasting and podcast production. And I think that's what makes life so exciting and so interesting and such an adventure. I'm a person who loves the unknown. Like, I love sitting here today and saying, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing
Yeah.
a month
Yeah.
from now, 2 months from now. I don't know if I'm going to change my mind. There have been some opportunities that have arisen that have really excited me that could bring me back into working a little bit. And I love that. I love that I have no idea because I think that if I did, I think it would be boring.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you guys listening, I'll put this on the Patreon. And I told Lauren this already, but I sat down on Friday to record an episode that has been in my notes section on that I keep for the podcast. And essentially what the theme of it is not made for more, but made for right now. And I recorded it and I was like, gosh, I stand by what I said. I believe in this, but something is like off. I don't want to put this out on Monday. That was the intention of it. And then when Lauren and I hopped on Zoom today, she was like, in essence, saying a lot of this same thing. And to speak to even what you were saying about not needing to know and not needing to like kind of coming into this accepting of the seasons, sometimes it has to be like, the future is none of my business. Like I know people who are very motivated by, future planning and futuristic thinking and stepping into your future self. And it wasn't up until recently when I heard like the other side of the coin, which is like my future. And especially you guys know on my podcast, I operate from faith, and in the faith element, I can see how, well, knowing my future then is none of my business. If I'm saying I'm a person of faith, then the future is not for me to project or to worry about. And so then it landed me in that message of, gosh, and especially in the personal development space, especially in the female space, there's always this forecast of, do you have that feeling that you were made for more? And I feel like it makes this lofty 3D, what I'm doing right now isn't good enough, where I'm at right now is not good enough, how do I get from here to there? And you're like looking at this 3D vision, and for some that can feel empowering, I get that, but for a lot I think it kind of like deflates energy instead of being like, I'm made for right now, and literally all that is promised to me and all that is for me to work with right now is what's around me. And even when it comes to motherhood, I think for a long time I was future living in the sense of like, when my kids are in school, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, then that moment actually happens and it's not as so much extra time as what I thought it was going to be, and like so much easier than what I thought it was going to be. So that's when too I had another moment of just live in the right now, Joelle. And even with podcast production, I think you mentioned my other businesses with like feminine fitness and hormone cyclical living type of stuff, and even network marketing. Like when I was in the trenches of those businesses, and even when I was going to school for my degree, I attached them to my identity, and I was just like, this is what I'm gonna be. And I wanted that to be forever. And when those those badges, you talked about those various things, those badges started to not feel good to put on anymore, I would feel bad about myself. I don't know if this is making sense, but I think it will with this next statement of I love what I do with podcast production and podcast management. I love my clients. I love talking with potential clients. I'm also 100% okay if in a certain amount of time life shakes, twists, rattles, and rolls, and I don't do it anymore. It's not a part of my identity. It's something that I do. And I was actually talking to some girlfriends about this, and then I'll kick it back to you, Lauren, of like, why is it we feel like we can't make these shifts and changes and pivots? And I think a lot of times it does stem from, when we're 16 years old, we're asked, where are you going to go to college? What are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to be when you grow up? And I'm like, what if we all just stopped asking kids who don't have their frontal lobe develop that question? And then, like, our generation went to school to be this certain thing. And then when they decide, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, and I've seen the example of my husband go through, he is not working in the field of which his college degree was, but he never had these identity shifts because what he did for work was always just something he does, not a part of his identity, if that makes sense. And so, like, let's kind of circle back to that made for more and
Yes.
what your thoughts are on that, because even you could probably talk about Q1 of this year after you made the decision. What was that like to be like, okay, now I operated this way for how many years, now I'm supposed to shut that off?
Oh my gosh. So you touched on so many things I wanted to talk about. The first thing before we go into that is I just wanted to say a lot of times we get stuck in doing something because we said at some point like this is what we were going to do. This is how we were going to be. And I just want you to ask yourself, how do you know how you're going to feel about something if you're not there yet? You don't. You don't know how you're going
Mm-hmm.
to feel about something until you're in that moment feeling it. So you could be like someone who doesn't have kids yet and be like, you know what, when I have kids, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. That's what I thought I was going to do. Then you get to that moment and you realize while you're in it, oh, that's not exactly how I feel. Allow yourself to be a fluid individual, a fluid woman. Honor what's coming up for you. And I wish more women would do that because I feel like so many women are stuck where they are because they're just doing something because they said they were going to do it forever ago. And you don't know how you're going to feel until you're in that moment. And so, why are you making decisions about the future when you haven't even gotten to that moment yet? So, I hope that gives you permission to change your mind if you need to change your mind because you just don't know until you're right there. But, in order for me to walk away, and that's what I call it. I walked away. I wrote down in my notes walking away isn't failure because that
Mm.
is a big thing that I had to work through. I had lots of stories and limiting beliefs about my identity and how I would be perceived as a stay-at-home mom. I wrote down I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And I find myself sometimes I still say that I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Take out the word just. I'm not just anything. Like I am this or this is what I do. And I had to, really think about or work through what I felt like other people were going to think. I just this is not a knock on any stay-at-home moms because I'm one of them, but I just had this story that like people are going to think I'm not smart. Like I'm not going to be involved in business conversations anymore because I'm not like actively in that world anymore. So I had a lot of things to work through about how I would be perceived by other people and I had to decide if I was going to allow what I thought people, and I'm doing air quotes, were going to think about me, whether I was going to allow that to dictate my actions. And obviously, I decided that people could think whatever they want about me, and I just had to do what I felt was right for me. There were things I had to work through with regards to money and control. I've never been the breadwinner in our family ever. Like my husband has always made significantly more than me, but there was something about me making my own money that really made me feel like I had more control over money. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know.
I think it's real though.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like it just, and that's where I kind of go into the relationship side, because there are things about the relationship I have with my husband that really had to be put in place in order for this to work, because he makes the money, I take care of everything else, but he's not in control of the money. Like, we control the money together. So I was never put in a position of feeling like, oh, I need to ask if I can spend, or if I can get certain things. Like, our relationship has never been like that. It's been a relationship based on mutual respect for each other. And it really is a team. And we understand that he does these things as on the team, and I do these things on the team. And together we're more than the sum of our parts. And neither of us could function without each other, right?
Yes.
Couldn't function
Yes.
without him because he makes the money. He couldn't function without me because I take care of the kids and do a lot of the house stuff and take care of all of that. And so I think there's a mutual understanding there, that, but I know that, that can be a big thing. Letting that can be an issue, especially if there is a control issue when it comes to money.
Yeah,
I
if
had to really
that
sit
could be a
down.
huge thing, and I think that's a good point. And you said mutual respect, and it's like even mutual respect of the synergy and not seeing money as a higher value than the to-dos, the tasks, the things, right?
Yep.
Both are of equal both are of equal in the commodity of how a household operates. And I'm also very lucky in that sense of my husband very much under sees that the day-to-day mundane things of household management is a lot to uphold. And just because there's the ink, like the money, whether it's me or him that's quote unquote making more, it doesn't matter because the money is money. We are married and it is ours,
Yes.
right? And it, because yeah, we see that often and all the time. We see it in like just even a lot of television shows that are about families where it's like, oh, if one makes the money, their task time is more important than, or the other person is looked down upon, even though there's like the task load. And it's really just like both of which are deposits into how your family operates. And instead of thinking of it as the only deposit to make into how a family operates is whoever makes the money. So I could see how making the shifts and changes, there's going to be different but similar things that come up for each individual. And I think even what you're saying is like vulnerable communication, depending on, for some women, they haven't had that like luxury of the even ground.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is something it's important to come up with and have those uncomfortable conversations, because without those uncomfortable conversations spoken, it's only going to build up so much more internally, I think, in the brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there are vulnerable conversations that have to be had. And this hasn't been without its hiccups. Like, I had a conversation with you in the summer when we were navigating like the first summer of me staying home and not working, and you know kind of what my life appeared to be like to my husband versus
Mm-hmm.
what he was going through. And his life doesn't change in the summer. He still works, and he's still stressed out, and he still has lots of responsibilities. And you know being staying home with the kids, my goal for the summer was to give them a really fun summer. And so a lot of the normal things that I would do when they're in school got pushed to the wayside because they were home. And I was like, well, they're home and it's summer and it's nice, and I want to give them the summer that I always envisioned giving them. So we're going to go out and do lots of fun things. And so there were times when he was like, we were navigating that of him being like, you just get to go do, all the fun stuff. And, I feel like I'm I'm over here grinding. And it was the case, right? That is the reality of being a mom that doesn't work in the summer. And we had to navigate that, and we were able to navigate it, and we were able to work through it. And but yeah, you're gonna have your hiccups when it comes to this, and you're gonna have different kinds of conversations depending on what your dynamic is before you enter into something like this. But when we're talking about more, I was telling Joelle, I was on a podcast recently, and I was saying something to the effect that, like, it's okay to be content with where you're at. And I don't think I would have said that 2 years ago. Like 2 years ago, I was the no, like, you should never feel content. Like, you should always be pushing for more. And I think more can come in lots of forms. And oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we think of more as more success, more growth, more money. And we look at it solely from that perspective. But what if it was more joy? What if it was more presence? What if it was more time? What if it was less stress? What if it was um, having more of an emotional capacity to deal with your kids' big emotions? Like, I think more is, we only look at more in a certain way. So these days, when I think about more, I think about, what do I want more of in my life? And I wrote down, busy isn't better. I like to listen to Maria Menounos's podcast called The Heal Squad. And she says, focus on being a human being. We've gotten too tied up in being human doings. We're all walking around being a bunch of human doings. Like, we're doing, 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 versus focusing on being a human being. And I still have to remind myself that having an open schedule, or being more present, not having my time filled with so much stuff, is not equivalent to being lazy. I I wrote, presence isn't laziness. Doing less isn't laziness. Because I think we've been conditioned to think that if we have free time in our schedule, we should be doing something. We should be saying yes to this or that. And I have to constantly remind myself that if I say no, if I have free time, if I have 30 minutes to sit outside on my deck in the sun, that's not me being lazy. That's me making a choice to live a slower lifestyle and to be more present. I have to do that now, especially as my kids are getting to activities. And maybe that's not something that you can relate to, but you're thinking about business. There are so many things we can say yes to. And there are so many things that we feel like we should say yes to. And there are people out there who are in your world, in your community, in your environment, who do say yes to a lot of things. And I feel like those people can be glorified, and they are the people that everyone's, oh my gosh, they're so great, they're saying yes to all these things. I'm the person who says yes to very few things. And the reason I say yes to very few things is because I know what my priorities are, and I actually live by my priorities versus my priorities just being words. And so when I say my priorities are my kids, everything measures up against that. Is it going to take time away from my family and my kids? Because especially when they're in school, you only get so much time with them every day. They come home, I pick them up at 3:15. They come home, now they're in activities. Like, we get maybe an hour or 2 hours together, like one-on-one time. And I'm like, I run everything up against that. Is whatever I might say yes to going to interfere with that time? Because that is the most important thing to me. That's what I've decided, and my husband has decided, is my main priority. And so that's another thing I had to work through, is maybe I'm the person who says no more. Maybe I'm not the person who helps with everything. And I have to be okay with that, knowing that I have really solid boundaries. But that could appear a certain way to other people, and I just have to be okay with that. But busy isn't better. busy is not better. I feel like we're all running around stressed and busy and saying yes to all these things and have no boundaries. And then we're not really living by what we say our priorities are. And it maybe looks great from the outside looking in, but I think a lot of women are really struggling on the inside because of that pressure that they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
How do you then take that key point and element and kind of discern what activities you're doing with your kids? Because I mean, I've been talking about it a little bit, but mostly in the Patreon on my mental toughness journey. And really what I'm still seeing and hearing from like the mental toughness lens of things is like being involved in community, being active in activities, like kids being part of sports, those types of things, and getting experiences by not just sitting at home and in front of a screen. Because I think some people can hear that and they're like, clear the calendar, we're all just staying home. And when everybody's just staying
Oh
home, okay, I wanted to just make sure that wasn't
no.
the
Oh no.
message because I know you and I'm like, okay, but you know, and we'll go into the conversation of, okay, yeah, then what are you filling your time with? Because I know you've been very intentional and practical about it. And I have a lot of key points to highlight you on, like just the wonderful and positive things I've seen you doing since you've been in this year of what you're doing. And so, because I do want to say that there are such positive aspects for kids to be in community. And I know for me, when I was in isolation as a mom of little kids and then working from home, like grasping at success in online business, gosh, internally, I felt so drained and so tired. And right now, with how we live, is I've got my work and I enjoy it, but it does have a start and stop. I'm home with and for my kids, and we have the time where we've got our chill, whatever day of the week and a couple nights a week where we don't have activities. But gosh, the positivity that I've felt and I've seen in my kids by being in organized sports, by trying new sports, me, even if it is just small talk with the other moms that I see, we in the past, I'll give an example. This summer, or when their kids were really really little, I always said no to going to the social things. And yesterday we had friends that had a gathering for the Vikings Packers game. We won't talk about it, Lauren, because the Vikings won. But we had a friends thing, and usually I would have said no. There would have been times where I even would be like, I'll stay home with the youngest. You guys go ahead. But when we went and when it was like, it's fine that not everything got done on the Sunday, it's fine. But we had great times to have adult conversation. The kids were, gosh, just running and doing things in a yard that was very much set up for kid appropriate things. I see where you're like, I know you can tie this in. Like, how has that been with being in the season of no, but yet, like, you still see the scope of what you are putting on your calendar?
So I don't say no for them. I say no for me. So
Oh,
when I'm talking about saying no, I'm talking about taking on additional responsibilities myself that would interfere with the things that I feel are my main priority. My kids are in more activities than probably most parents would be comfortable with, but they want to be in them. My daughter is in ballet, hip hop, figure skating, swim club. She just finished up soccer. She would, if she could, also do probably gymnastics and hockey. This child would do everything if she could. And I'm the one who has to rein her in and be like, no, we actually can't do all of those things. You actually do need like one night a week where we're not doing something. And I'm the one who has to kind of tell her, we have to, your brother also has things going on and we have to manage both schedules. And, my son is just finished up soccer. He's also in football. So some Saturday mornings, we're going straight from soccer to football. He will be starting hockey. He loves to mountain bike. We love to go downhill skiing. Like we are in all the activities.
You guys are a really active
We are
family.
very, very active and it is incredible. And I have noticed, especially at this age that they are like 6 and 7, that they are really thriving more when they're around other kids. And so this summer, with them being home with me, if we went for a couple days without seeing friends, it was like, okay, you guys, we got to go see some friends. Like you guys just they need that interaction. They're very, very social
Community is
kids.
so important.
Yeah,
Community is
and
so important. And I think
it
moms have gotten away with seeing that as a very important part of life because of like social media and the pandemic. But being in some type of social community is so important.
yeah, and this last year really, or this year, I have made it a priority in my life to create really close friendships with women who live near me, who I
Mm.
really connect with. And there is a group of 5 of us that have been getting together for coffee, a couple times a month. We started this even before the summer. And then in the summer, it was like our group. Like we did lots of things together. And our kids, like you guys, this is insane. So my one girlfriend, she has 5 kids. She's pregnant with her sixth. My other girlfriend has 4 kids. And then there's 3 of us that have 2 kids. So if you add all that up, we've got 5, 4, and then we have 15 kids, 8 and under
Yeah.
between the 5 of us. And I always would tell people, you would think when we would get together, it would be chaos, but it's not. Like they all play so well together and they look after each other and they can all be at our house and we as adults can be sitting outside. Yes, our kids are that age now where like they can, manage on their own, but I also think that's really important. And gosh, I listened to so many podcasts. I wish I knew where this was from, but I was listening to a podcast. Oh, no, it's not from a podcast. It was from a book called I think it's called The Anxious Generation. I was listening to it on Audible and he was talking about, the effects that social media in particular, and yeah, it's called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Hoyt. And he was talking about the effects that social media and technology have had on, in particular, Gen Z and why Gen Z is struggling so much. And he was saying it was a combination of social media, but also of a lack of those types of unsupervised play opportunities. And that really resonated with me because when I was young, I grew up in neighborhoods and we were always biking from, one friend's house to another. Like we were rarely at our house and our parents never worried. And, we were always playing with other kids. And I think I'm really hyper aware of that because where I live, my kids don't have that. We don't have a neighborhood where there's other kids. And I've really started to see the effects of that. And so I think that's why I've made it such a priority to have that time where it's unsupervised play with other kids, where us moms are sitting, not supervising the play, making your
Not
kids
chiming
figure
in
it
on the
out.
don't say that to your
Yeah.
friend.
They'll
Let
come
the
to us and
kids.
be like, so and so is blah, blah, blah. And we're like, figure it out. You guys got to figure it out. You're all playing together. And I really see it pay off this last summer. Like they really have started to find a flow where they have those friendships, they are playing that way. And I think that's really, really important. So we are not isolated over here.
Yeah.
Like we are so far from isolated, but activities are a really big priority for us. I think I grew up very, very serious in sports. My husband grew up very serious in sports. I think it taught us so many amazing life skills. And we are not the parents that are pushing the sports on our kids. These are things that our kids are wanting to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make it happen for them if they want to do it. And so we have that, and then making those friendships with other moms in our community a really, really big priority in my life has also brought like those friendships of their kids into my kids' lives. And that's been a really big priority also.
Yeah, that's huge. And also to caveat too, once again, like kind of playing devil's advocate, because I want everybody listening to know very clearly, like Lauren had said, I'm letting go of things for myself. But caveat, there have been things that you've been able and opportunities you've given yourself to do and pour back into you. So what are your thoughts on, and how are you filling your cup is what I'm going to be asking here. Does this mean that you're just in this full life of devotion to your kids and you're not doing anything for yourself anymore?
No, not at all. So I think the beautiful thing about this is I do have time now for both. And I think everything's a balance, right? Like I have time during the day to do stuff for me. So I love going for an hour long walk with my dogs. I will do that every day. I work out, you know, five days a week usually. That's like something for me. I will go get a massage. I'll go get a facial. Those are things I do for myself. I also will, like the five moms I was talking about, we are going on a girls trip to Lake Tahoe in 3 days. And so we're leaving all our kids with all the dads, and the five of us are going on this trip. And my kids will sit and be like, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to leave. And I'm like, no, this is good for me and it's good for you. Like it's good for I have the belief that it's good for my kids not to be around me all the time. I think my kids need to learn to survive in the world without me there all the time. And it's good for them to be with daddy on his own for 5 days, you know? And so I do things like that. And then I do, all the house stuff. And I probably have more time to fill my cup up these days than I've ever had in the past. So it's not like I'm sitting here denying myself the things that bring me joy either. It is a balance. And I think if you have to look at everything as gray. Like you can't live in the
Mm-hmm.
black and the white. You can't live fully this to the left or fully to the right. I think that's where we get in trouble is when we don't allow ourselves that middle ground, and everything is about balance.
Yeah. And it's actually funny because I even remember when you were reading My Human Design, you were like, you're just innately built to see things black and white. But I think like conditioning in a good way has helped me see the gray, because even that book I was recommending to you before we hit record, Bad Therapy, in that book, there are talking points against or kind of contradicting the blame that we're putting on social media in the anxious generation. Like it's one where it's like it is like I think the anxious generation and bad therapy are like one is black and one is white. But I think being like what you said is we've got to look at the lens of things within the gray, because I mean even with what we were talking about when I was saying like sports and these things are really really great for kids, I also can definitely see the scope of trusting other people, coaches that you don't know very well with your kids, and that putting your kids in a vulnerable situation. Like I see the black and the white even of that situation with sports, but I can see it in the gray of, okay, well, this is how I'm going to navigate it in the middle, where for us, and we live in a town where we're lucky, where the sports kind of like there's one at a time, and then when one ends the next one kind of starts. I think that's like a small Midwest type of thing, because we don't have access to a ton of resources in our tiny town, so they kind of have to rotate the space out. But I could definitely see like somebody listening and being like, well, you're never with your kids, or you're never talking to your kids if your kids are going to activities every night. And I'm like, no, like I can say, this day of the week, this day of the week, this day of the week, we really have free roam as a family to do whatever we want, whether it's chill, relax, or whatever. But Yeah, that gray area of things is to kind of is where I think you harmoniously develop what's right for you, what's right for your family, and what's right for your kids too. Because kids' personalities and interests and various things are going to be different.
Yeah. And, I like to, like, my schedule, let's say tomorrow night, our schedule. So I pick my kids up at 3:15. And then my daughter will have a dance class from 5:35 to 6:05. And that's it. And the dance studio is 30 seconds from our house. So we actually walk there. So yeah, that's an activity for that night. But I have from 3:15 till 5:30 with her. And then I have from 6:05 till bedtime with her. And then my son is home whole night with me. So I think part of it too is, yeah, there's lots of activities, but there is time in between those activities. And that's why I felt like it was so important that I was a present, not stressed parent, is because that time is smaller, right? Let's say on a night where something starts at 5 o'clock, I have maybe 2 hours. That's 2 hours to sit and talk and hear about their day and help them with their homework. And we make it a priority to sit down and have dinner together. And so these are things that we're fitting in between all of the activities. And so yeah, like my job turns on at 3:15. I always tell my husband with that I'm like, your job is done at 3 or whatever, and you drive home. My job starts at 3. That's when I pick up the kids and I am talking to them about their day. I'm helping them with their homework. I'm making sure my son is reading to me, and we're doing piano and we're doing all this, and then they're doing their activities. And I'm the parent who likes to watch the activities. I know not every parent likes to do that. I'm not the overbearing parent who's sitting there like screaming at their kids during practice, but I like to go watch. I like to watch the hockey practice. I like to watch the swim practice. And even my kids will ask me, like, please stay. Like, I really want you to watch. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'd love to. I want to watch. So yeah, there isn't that much time when your kids get into school and they have activities. There is not that much time that you get with them, so you really have to make the most of that time. And I think that it's up to every parent how much they want their kids in, and the child too, right? If my kids didn't want to be in this stuff, I wouldn't be the one being like, you have to be in something every night. I do think it's important that they're in things, that they are interacting with other kids outside of school. Like I said, I think sports or music or anything, like even I think our library has like a Lego club. My son loves Legos. Like anything that's of interest to them, I think being in something creates such, like, they learn such valuable life skills from that. And so that's just my philosophy. But I have friends who are like, we're 2 nights a week, like we want our kids and stuff 2 nights a week, and then the other 3 nights it's important that we aren't doing anything, and that works great for them. So I think that's something where you have to sit down again and look at, what are my priorities? What kind of kids do I have? Are they kids who want to be in all this stuff, or are they more interested in things outside of that? And you have to decide what works best for you, because everybody's different,
Mm-hmm.
and something different is going to work for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And as we close out, is there really anything else resonating on your heart to share that kind of pulls this all together for somebody who's listening? Maybe they're like, oh, I want to maybe go back to work, or bring it up to my spouse to be home, or try something new and different. What do you want to leave the woman who's wondering with?
I want you to know that it's okay for you to try something new. And it's okay if you try it and you decide you don't like it. Like I said, let things be a phase. Things can just be a phase. You could do something for a year and be like, that was great. That was exactly what I needed for that year. And now I want to now I want to try this thing. I think if you're feeling it, you owe it to yourself to give it a try and see, and just see. And you don't have to put pressure on it. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to have it be like, if I do this, that means that I have to continue down that path for the rest of my life. You know, that's for smaller things. If you're saying like, I'm deciding between going to like nursing school
Right.
or staying home, like that's going to be a much bigger decision that has much bigger consequences for whatever you decide. But I think that if you're feeling this pull in your gut, this inner voice, which is what I had been feeling for probably a solid year, I think you owe it to yourself to explore that. I think you owe it to yourself to have that conversation with your significant other if you have a significant other and it impacts them. I I think you owe it to yourself to just see, because I think too often we get stuck again in doing something just because we said that's what we were going to do, or we've been doing it for so long. How could we do something else? And I think that's just such a shame that so many women are kind of living in this life where they're like, I'm doing this and it used to make me happy, but it's not really making me happy anymore. But I'm scared to stop because of insert whatever story you're telling yourself or whatever the situation is. And so I just want to empower you to make those pivots, like to step into that unknown and just go for it. And if you are in the position where, you know, you're the person who has been all about the more, 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 like I was, and you're just feeling like that's just not the path for you anymore, I want you to know that life can be so fulfilling outside of that. It's not all about work and success and money. And there's so much more. There's so much more to life. And there's so many other things that can bring you that joy. And yeah, who knows? Who knows what I'll be up to even in the next like 4 or 5 months? You just never know. And I think
Right.
that's a beautiful thing.
I think that was the best way to end the conversation because I think I'm loving this conversation so much because it feels like a conversation. We got into the nitty gritty of the how and the what and the way things look, but also the concept, like you just said, take this step. And as you said a phrase, and I was even like, oh yeah, you said, oh, it'll come to me here in a second, but that direction is a next, it can be a next small step, and lean into this because while in Q4 of 2023 you did make like the hard decision about, I'm going to be done with this career path and trajectory. But would you say, and I know we said we were ending out the conversation, I'm kind of opening a Pandora's box right now. Q4, it wasn't necessarily just like a boom decision. There were layers and steps and like even small things that were coming about for you to make that move.
Oh yeah. I mean, the seed had been planted for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. Because
And
even with that example you gave of nursing school, my brain went to, but there's still a small step there you can take. Like if that element of, oh, should I go for nursing school or whatever other degree, it's, well, have you ever even just volunteered in that field? Like I actually even know a handful of gals locally that started out with the base degree and then worked in that field for quite a while and then made the decision to go into the more in-depth degree, whether in the same or in a different field. And I was just like, how come that wasn't the norm when we were like 18 years old and needing to make this big decision on what are you going to be when you grow up type of thing?
I I I think it's such a shame that we put that kind of pressure on our kids. Now that I have kids, I'm like, how are you supposed to know what you want to do at that age?
We still put that pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, and even like with age too. I'm a little older than Joelle. I'm 39. So, you know, that kind of seeps into the brain sometimes too is, oh, am I too old? Am I too old to start something new? Am I too old to dive into that? And then I always have to remind myself, no, like I tell myself, God blessing, that I'm not even halfway through my life yet, you know? And so I'm
Right.
like, why would I like
Mm-hmm.
cut myself off if I have more than half my life to live still, hopefully. But yeah, I think there's always small steps you can take to kind of see. And then again, you can you just never know how things are going to work out. Even if you go all the way through something, let's say, to play devil's advocate, you're the person who's, well, I went to school for this. I spent all this money getting this degree, and then I've been working in this field for 5 or 10 years, and now I just don't really know if this is what I want to do anymore. My sister was a labor and delivery nurse for 5 years, and then she stopped to be a stay-at-home mom. And then she ended up getting divorced, and now she's gone back to school to get her master's. And she knew she didn't want to go back into the hospital because of the schedule and being a single parent now. But now she's doing something with that nursing degree that she could never have predicted in a million years. She's getting like a master's in biomedical informatics or something like that, like with the technology side of medicine, where like her expertise in the nursing field mixes with the technology side. And it's so cool to see that evolution. So I also think there's just no way you can predict it, right? Like,
Yep.
kind of circling back to the beginning, there's no way you can know how these things are going to unfold. And I think that requires a huge level of trust and faith. And you talk about, faith in God, and having that trust and faith that like things are going to work out. Like,
Mhm.
as long as you're following that next step, and I know, Joelle, you talk about this all the time, just worrying about the next right step. Because as long as you're just following that next right step, things are going to, if you're being true to yourself, I think things are, in the end, are going to work out. Not to say there won't be challenges and hiccups and roadblocks and things along the way, but I think overall, you are going to find yourself in a place that you are really happy with.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this, because I think we really hit a lot of just big high points where people can say, my situation's not the same, but I can see how I can implement it. But then also got into the nitty gritty, because I hate listening to podcasts and I'm being like, but what does that look like? Like, we went there and we shared like the conversation and the hiccups and things that you had went through. And while you might not feel like, oh, that particular situation isn't going to be the same, but getting down into the nitty gritty of it all with hitting on the high points and the ideas, this has been such a great conversation. So I thank you so much for being on, and for even embarking on this advocacy for women. Of it is 100% okay to strip the identity, to change your mind, to do something different, even if it was something you said, I could never do that, and then here you are, and then taking ownership of that role, because I know you and I know that you're a hard worker and that you are organized and you are intentional. And while those types of things in online business and in work and in general, those are assets within an organization, you're using those strengths that you have for your home and for your work, and you take it that seriously. You guys could hear it when she was like, I am the CEO of this home, like I am taking ownership of how things are operating here. And I think too, that's why there's such beauty in the fulfillment that you're feeling internally, because you've come from it as an empowered place instead of an embarrassed place of being like, oh, here I am, I said I was never going to do this, that means I've failed in this other area. So I really think this is going to be an empowerment point, and I'm grateful that you reached out to do it on my platform, because it is so important. I always thought I was going to be like the top network marketing, health and fitness girl. Like, I was going to do that forever, and never will I ever say I'll never again, because I'm like, I've just loved how life has taken me in the direction that it has. And it's been nothing that I could have ever imagined. And I'm also not attached to where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me come on and have this conversation.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you loved what you heard or you want to share your favorite episode topics, please leave a rating and review. This helps the podcast growth and gives people an idea of what the podcast is all about. Something new and exciting that I wanted to share with you before we go is that we now have a Patreon page. This has replaced the Feminine Edge collective community in a cohesive place that is easier for me to manage and cheaper for you. If you are interested in our monthly classes, exclusive day in the life vlogs, Bible studies, community Q&A, and more, go to patreon.com/livingInSync and join for just $5 a month. Check out the show notes for any links or details of things referenced in today's episode, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.